Okay. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We don't have everyone on the call yet that we would like, but I think we've got a majority of folks on the call. So let's just go around. David, why don't you just sort of call the roll so that we can know who's here and who's in whose place?
All right, yeah. We'll start with, of course, with Chair Lawrence Royale,
Here?
and then County Commissioner Boscotti. Boscotti? I believe, no. Councilor Davis,
Sean Fran here, attending on behalf of Councilor Davis.
okay. Councilor Benton. I don't see Councilor Benton yet. Commissioner O'Malley. I do not see her yet either. County Manager Morgan Baca.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. President Stokes
Here.
is here, and Dr. Zadonis.
Hi, here.
All right.
All right, great. Thank you very much, everybody, for being here, and I'm sure others will join us as we move along. Obviously, I think the agenda has been sent out to all of you. Any changes or additions to the agenda before we get too far down the road here? Okay, seeing none. We had public comment starting at 9:45. We have not had anyone sign up to speak at this point. Is that correct, David?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll move forward with the agenda. There still is about 6 minutes or so for folks that might want to chime in. So if you all will indulge us for a minute, if we do get someone that wants to speak, we may have to break from the agenda just to give them an opportunity. So with that said, why don't we move up to the next approval of the December 8th meeting minutes. Those were all sent out. I think everyone's got a chance to look at them. We need a motion for approval of the minutes.
So moved. This is Julie.
Moved by Julie. I'll second that. Any other changes or edits to the minutes? If not, by a raise of hands, let's approve them. That may be the easiest thing to do. All right, the minutes are approved. Then we'll move on to, I noticed that Councilor Benton just joined us. Welcome, Councilor. We'll move up to COVID-19 system updates. This is an opportunity for us just to hear what's going on. I'm going to turn it over to Carol Pierce and have Carol and her staff give a presentation on this. So, Carol.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good morning, everyone. Well, collectively between the city, the county, and the state, we continue to maintain a system of a total of 5 hotels, and it also includes our West Side Emergency Housing Center. As of last week, we had about 758 people in our care. About 195 of that 758 were children under the age of 18. I know you've heard those figures before, but they bear repeating. They are staggering. On any given time in the past, in the West Side, our city's largest homeless shelter, in our family pod there, at the highest, we usually would see about 25 children. With COVID, we rearranged the WEC to comply with the CDC guidelines for spacing and to reduce the transmission of the disease. And so we no longer have a family pod there. Thus, families are coming into our wellness hotel. At this point, we really don't have more room for families. We do have a single point of entry system and somebody taking intake and doing the best they can if somebody has moved out, either because of placement in housing or a change of circumstance, but we don't have more rooms available. As soon as one comes up, then they are rapidly filled. I just think what is so notable, and we're coming up upon the point in time count, it's what all municipalities do about every other year. And families are typically very undercounted in the point in time count. They're hard to find, they're doubled up in homes, they're in their cars, they're kind of invisible. This pandemic is making the crisis of families who are homeless more visible than ever, and it's really quite heartbreaking. But together, we're trying to get people connected to housing, get the services that they need. And so that's what's so important that's happening right now. And so, as I mentioned, we've got this fast track to housing. We've got a housing navigator at our Wellness 2 hotel to really gather the paperwork needed and work with families to get them connected to the best housing that meets their needs, close to a job, close to the school that their children may be going to. So Lawrence, I think that's where I would give the COVID update. But of course, I know Doug just joined. We've got Lisa on the phone and Quinn, and they're very much a part of our establishing the safety net here in COVID in case somebody else might want to add something.
I'll just add a few comments. So,
Go ahead, Doug.
So as you can imagine, it's been a rough couple of weeks post the holiday, but the good news is our numbers on the inpatient numbers are going down. We're still 50% over as far as our bed capacity, but numbers are going down. But still, we are concerned. We're concerned with some of the new variants and that of the COVID virus itself, and that they're about 50% more likely for an infection to be transmitted. So we are trying to even increase the use of N95s in our hospital setting or where we're in contact with people. On the hopeful, positive, good news, the vaccination program is going well. We're using the product that comes in a very timely way. We have over 14,000 people who've been vaccinated. We've been doing 1,000 a day. And today we start the pit. So our goal is for that to be 3,000 a day. And if we can do more, we'll do more. But so I would say that a little bit of good news, but a little bit more concern with the virus variant. And vaccinations are in movement, and we're basically following the state's guidance on who gets vaccinated due to people signing up through the online portal. And we encourage everybody to do that.
Go ahead, Kara.
I'll add, and thank you, Dr. Z, so much. We're so excited about the rollout of vaccine. We're very excited that people who do not have homes are in the 1B category. We are teed up and kind of ready to go to have a vaccination clinic out at the West Side. We've got our plans in place. We know we've got a screening mechanism as well as a tracking mechanism for the first shot and the second shot. Now we just need to get in line with Department of Health, have a good relationship with them to hopefully get a vaccination clinic there soon.
Dr. Z, thank you so much for that update. I think it's really important. Maybe we can have that conversation about on the hospital side and what's going on. So system-wide in Bernalillo County and the state. So thank you so much for that update. Carol, if I might go back and just, I don't know if by nod of heads, does everyone understand a little bit about the Fast Track for Housing program, what that is? If not, it might be worth just having you describe it very quickly, Carol, just so that I think everyone knows.
Thank you, Lawrence. Well, we've called it the Fast Track to Housing because we know that the most important solution for somebody without a home is to get into the housing situation that best meets their needs. So our Fast Track for Housing we are working with our providers, UNM Pathways Navigators, fabulous program. They are part of this, as well as Healthcare for the Homeless, as well as we have $2 million of rapid rehousing dollars that is in our budget, and we are using those rapid rehousing dollars to get the paperwork done and get people placed into housing as rapidly as possible. So what we are learning, this is exactly the kind of system that we would like in any one of our gateways where we've got a housing navigator. So it starts with getting who is their case manager, what is the paperwork that they need, and then finding out what part of town makes the most sense. But we're really concentrating, if you will, resources at Wellness 2 with the families and the individuals who are there to get them housed. And I think what's really making the difference is that concentration of understanding the barriers for folks to get into housing and really helping them get the paperwork. And I might ask, I know Quinn and Lisa are very involved in this as well and could possibly add some other details.
I'll just add, it is, I think, it's taking what we know is best practice for helping people exit from emergency shelter into permanent housing and just really applying it on the ground. So like Carol said, we have our pathways navigators who are really doing the service coordination, making sure folks are connected to the community resources that they need to obtain housing and then stay housed. So everything from getting an ID to getting connected to behavioral health services to employment training. And then we have a housing coordinator provided through a contract with Healthcare for the Homeless, who is really focusing on that housing piece. So meeting with folks, understanding what their income is, how much they could pay in income towards housing, what kind of subsidized housing they might qualify for, and helping people take the steps that they need to apply for that kind of housing. And like Carol said, I think what's helping us have success is that we have designated a portion of this $2 million in general fund money that we received as part of this year's budget, specifically for folks that are at the Wellness Motel. So that's creating kind of an exit strategy for folks. And that's 1 year's worth of rental assistance. So that's not a solution for everybody, but it is for many folks staying at the Wellness Motel. So I think we're learning a lot about, none of this is rocket science and it's all stuff that we know is best practice, but we're really applying it in a very focused way at Wellness Motel 2. And I think there's a lot we're learning that we'll also be able to apply to our gateway centers, as Carol said.
Okay, any other questions on this? Quinn, do you want to add anything?
Lawrence, if Quinn doesn't have anything to add.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Thank you. My understanding too of this particular fund is that it has a lot of flexibility, which is something that I think everyone was wanting to have in terms of either short-term funding for helping a family that's newly, just is on the edge or is about to become homeless. And so it doesn't have a lot of the regulations, restrictions of other federal dollars in terms of who can be helped. So I think that's a good thing. No,
that's absolutely right. Carol?
Lawrence, one more thing. I see the comment in the chat box. I think to date, we have housed 3 to 4 families. And I think every day at our 11 o'clock call with our system providers, when we look at the census of all of the wellness hotels of the Westside Emergency Housing Center, we do ask if there's housing stories. And as we talk about the barriers, we do know that in spite of our concentrated work and best practice, it's not always a fast process to get people into housing. And so to date, 3 to 4, we anticipate that this will continue to be a steady flow, we hope, into housing, and we can keep that on our agenda and update people as we move forward.
Okay, great. Okay, well, then the next item that we wanted just to give everybody an update on is on the single site project. This is a project that is a city-county project. Commissioner O'Malley and Councilor Benton were very responsible for making this go work through the process on both government side. But I don't know if you're going to have Doug or Carol, which one of you will want to just give a quick update on the single site project?
That's Mr. Chaplin.
All right, Doug, go for it.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Yeah, the single site supportive housing project, joint venture between the city of Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, and the New Mexico Mortgage Finance Authority is out of the ground. They've gone vertical with the construction. We're very excited by that. You can see the framing has begun to take place. It's moving forward, and we're really looking forward to being able to work with the county and getting 42 individuals housed in that facility with the appropriate wraparound facilities. Shooting for August, September, I believe, something along those lines. So we can, as we move through the construction phase, tie that time frame down a little bit better, let everybody know about it. But we're really excited to see that come out of the ground.
Hey, Doug, for the purposes of our friends at the university who may not know all the details like city and county people do, maybe quick for Dr. Z and President Stokes, just what is the single site and how many beds and where is it located?
Sure. So the single site is called Hope Village, and it's located next door to HopeWorks Day Shelter on 3rd Street. This is a 42 unit apartment complex with individual apartments. Was designed with using trauma-informed principles and will be used to house individuals with a severe mental illness diagnosis. And we'll be working closely with the county to identify those individuals. And so it's really ideal to get folks off the streets. On the ground level, there are offices and spaces being provided for care at the site for those individuals. And I think that's kind of the high level overview of that project.
Commissioner O'Malley or Councilor Benton, would you like to add anything to that?
Lawrence, I don't have anything to add. I wanted to ask a question just to kind of summarize this. Now, it's very thrilling to have this under construction. Finally, it's been a lot of work, a lot of collaboration, great collaboration between the city and the county. What's the construction cost, the contract cost on this? Do you know, Doug, the total or approximate?
It's I'm going to miss it by a little bit, but it's about $9.6 million.
And it includes on the ground floor a lot of office space and so forth. So that's not a direct correlation to the number of dwelling units. But
that's correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner, any thoughts? Commissioner O'Malley? Okay. All right. I think the only reason we're putting some of these on the agenda today is just to give everyone the sense that there's other activities going on in the community and that we're doing other programs aside from the, if you will, the shelter conversation that we've been having for some time. I do want to just mention and have Commissioner O'Malley talk a little bit about the tiny homes project that she and the county have been involved with, and that'll give at least our friends at the university some information about what's going on as it relates to that project. So Commissioner O'Malley, do you mind, or you or Julie, however you want to handle it?
Well, we could both handle it. We've both been involved in it. There's a lot of people that were involved in it. So the latest is that they've formed the advisory committee that's going to do oversight. They've got a lot of pieces to this. There was a structure, an organizational structure that they had to put together and been working on. So as you can imagine, a lot of the structure itself, because this is self-governance and overseen by the Albuquerque Indian Center. And then of course, there's other folks on staff now who are interviewing people for the village. The idea is to have a core group of people initially settled in there. And so that because this group or they'll form a smaller group, a committee that will review applications, et cetera, give people tours and that sorts of thing. So I think that, all of a sudden once we get the certificate of occupancies, and it's not going to be full. It's a gradual process because it's not, as we keep telling people, it's not a shelter. It's not a low barrier shelter. We've tried to lower the barriers as much as possible, but it was created in such a way for people to cooperate with one another and to live in that kind of setting and agree to do certain things and to work on, for example, if they've got an addiction issue, that they're going to work on that, etc. And then, of course, the wraparound services include occupational therapy, mental health support, and also looking at getting work for people as soon as they're able. So the village itself is, really beautiful village, and I said that I would set something up for folks in the last committee, as you know, for a tour, so we're very pleased with it. It's a very high quality project. That's important to not only people who are going to live there, but also to the surrounding community. That it'd be a high quality project, that it looks good and it's well designed. And of course, we've received, folks who have toured it have received some very positive comments. So really pleased with the outcome. And I didn't know if you wanted to add anything, Julie.
Good morning, everybody. I think the commissioner summed it up pretty well. It's just been a real good partnership. And I think one of the things that Commissioner O'Malley, you should be proud of is the fact that we've had people volunteer to do things, like the union volunteer to do a lot of the work. She was able to get, I forget which church commissioner, someone from the faith community donate the mattresses.
Right, the Church of Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, that's pretty, that's pretty noteworthy, I think, and very impressive, that because that just shows people's interest and buy-in into this community. So it's just really exciting. And I know there was someone else Home Builders,
Right.
that donated as well. So yeah, so it's been a great project and it's been a great partnership. So thank you.
Right, just closing, we did have a lot of support from the state. Senator Lopez and also Senator Mimi Stewart, that's her district, took the lead, working with other legislators in that area to get quite a big chunk of change from the state. Of course, we had support from the governor as well. We've had some support from the city councilors in the district, including Diane Gibson. This is in her district, but this is a big issue for her as well. Water utility donated water tanks and helped us with landscaping. As mentioned, we've got a number of partners. ACE Leadership School, they're building the outdoor chairs for the tiny homes. So just had a lot of folks who've said, how can I help? How can I step up? And I'm probably missing some people, but try to, remember as many folks as possible. But you can imagine something like this does take a lot. It takes a lot of work. And we're very grateful for all our partnerships and the support we've received.
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, thank you. Commissioner, where is it located roughly?
It's on the 105. Well, the address probably changed a little bit, but it's right next to the Albuquerque Indian Center, which is 105 Texas. So it's a block away from Central, across the street from the clinic, the Southeast UNM clinic, which is another partner. And then it is, so just a few blocks away, the city's building a beautiful new library. And so it's really close to transportation. I think that was really key. It's right next to, essentially just have to walk a block to get on a bus to Central. And of course, on Central, there's many opportunities for employment as well. But that's been a strong outreach as well, folks who want to help in terms of the employment, where you have, people don't understand. It's really key for people to have some stability and not going to be able to get a job if they don't. A lot of people say, oh, well, these people just, they should just get a job. It's like, and how does that work, right? When you have your stuff, where you're going to put it, you can't take a shower anywhere. You're trying to keep all your stuff together. And another thing, like I said, not take a shower, don't have any home that you can have an address, you need an address. It's just too complicated. So it's important, and you can achieve that through transitional housing. I know that, ultimately we want to put people in a permanent situation, but we got to do what we can as soon as possible. This is sort of my feeling about it, which of course, as I mentioned, I'm a big, strong proponent of this idea of sanctioned tent camps, which I know some people don't like, but I think that's also something to look at. But anyway, that said, I think that that's really a key, is to getting folks feeling stable and safe as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Commissioner. Just as an FYI, we've got several questions that have come into the chat box, and we always try to accommodate some of those questions coming in from different folks listening in. So, David, can you go back and read a couple of those and see if we can't maybe answer some of their questions, at least so that folks know that we are listening to their or at least taking note of their comments. David, are you there?
Yep, so, yes, yeah, no problem.
Mm-hmm. So can you read the questions for the group? Okay.
So we had one from someone just with the name David on here that says, concerning a single site, is there time limit for people to stay there? Are individuals responsible for their own meals and cleaning? And specific to tiny homes, who is their legal owner? Who is the legal owner of the site?
All right. So Doug, can you talk about the single site quickly?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So there's not a time limit for individuals to stay at Hope Village, and the folks that are staying there are capable of carrying out their activities of daily living, and so they need to be capable of taking care of their own food and cleaning responsibilities. Having said that, there could be opportunities for meals to be brought in if they wanted to do some things jointly through some of their care. But for the most part, these individuals will be able to take on those tasks.
Okay. And Commissioner or Julie, can you all talk about the ownership of the tiny homes village?
We are leasing it from the Albuquerque Indian Center, the land.
Okay. All right. So the Albuquerque Indian Center, are they going to be managing it as well, Commissioner?
They have the operating agreement.
Okay. All right. All right. Great. And one last comment. We always know that there's not always a simple solution to all of these. So we're trying different options here. The tiny homes are one. The village, the Hope Village is another. Obviously, a shelter is another. So we're working every angle that we can possibly work as a committee. So I just want to address that one question that came from an individual who was asking about that one option or one solution doesn't work for everybody, and we wholeheartedly agree with that. So with that, any questions related to any of the above topics that we just discussed? If not, we can move to our next topic, which is the New Mexico legislature, that, as you all know, is convening here shortly. And we have a couple of, we thought it would be important for all of us just to talk a little bit about our legislative policies as it relates to this issue of homelessness and any policy, any housing issues that may come up. So we put everybody on the agenda so that we could make sure that if we all, at least from the city's perspective, the mayor's perspective, and the council, we're obviously very, very supportive of any initiatives, whether they be UNMs or the Bernalillo counties, to support, getting more resources on homelessness, to helping address some of the concerns you all might have. So we're happy to sign letters of support, or even have our folks, support whatever efforts you all are moving forward in Santa Fe. But with that, if you all don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to Carol a little bit and just have Carol talk a little bit about what we are asking for in the legislative session in terms of funding, et cetera, and then we'll go to each of the respective partners. Go ahead, Carol.
Thank you, Lawrence. We have two items. I'll speak to the first one, and I'll ask Deputy Uval to speak to the second. The first one is the city is asking for $10 million in capital to assist with our gateway system that we are building. More capital dollars will be needed to have these multiple entry points in our community. And I think it speaks to one of the comments that one size does not fit all. Multiple solutions are needed in this system that we are creating in the gateway system. Capital dollars are needed. So that's the city's first request. The second, I'll turn it over to Lisa to talk about the Housing Modernization Act.
Good morning, everyone. So in the one of the high impact strategies that the Housing Committee identified is to increase protections for tenants, including what is called including legislation that prohibits source of income discrimination. And what that means is when landlords, currently landlords are allowed to refuse to rent to someone because the way they pay for their rent is via a housing voucher, whether that's a Section 8 voucher or a permanent supportive housing voucher funded by the city or HUD. That is currently permissible for landlords to opt not to rent to someone purely because they have a housing voucher. So housing advocates in our community have been working on legislation to do a few things. One, to increase, really modernize protections for renters in order to make sure that they're balanced with protections for landlords, including source of income discrimination or banning source of income discrimination. So legislation was pre-filed last week at the legislature. This is House Bill 111. And it was introduced by Representatives Romero and Rubio. And I will give you, I am still waiting for a kind of a fact sheet from my colleagues that I can send out to all of you, but I will give just a very quick verbal overview of what this bill does. Some of the things that it will do is it will expand the timeframes for tenants to pay rent and allow time for them to access rental assistance in order to pay their landlord. So increasing that from 3 days to 10 days after being provided with a notice of non-payment of rent. It will modify the period for setting an eviction hearing from not less than 7 days or more than 10 days to not less than 20 days. So giving folks more time before there's an eviction hearing. It adds a provision that residents have the right to cure and remain in their homes by paying all sums due anytime prior to the expiration of the time frame by which they're supposed to vacate. So basically, if they're able to pay the rent, then they can stay in their home. And it adds new provisions providing that a refusal to renew a lease or actions taken to terminate a lease that expired during or within 30 days after a declared state of emergency is prohibited. It includes this language that ends discrimination against protective tenants based on their source of income, including a housing voucher. And then it also creates a state housing council. So what this really does is modifying a current law, kind of sort of modernizes that law to give tenants some more protections, particularly around timing. You know, right now when folks are evicted, it happens so quickly that there's like really often no opportunity for families to make an alternative arrangement, and they do end up experiencing homelessness. So this offers some additional protections. What I wanted to ask of the Homeless Coordinating Council on behalf of the Housing Committee is whether the council would be willing to formally endorse or support this legislation. And I'm not quite sure what our process is for that, but I did want to put that request out there on behalf of the Housing Committee. And I will stop there.
Thanks, Lisa. That's a great update. Why don't we do this? I'm sure we're all going to be supportive, but I think in deference to everyone, since when the bill gets drafted or when you get some basic information, if we could just get it circulated to all of the folks, and then at our next committee meeting, which will still be, it's a 60-day session, so we're going to have some time. We can then ask for at least some support from the group as we move forward. Okay.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Awesome. Well, both of those are important to the city, and obviously we'd love to have everyone's support, but also realize that people want to review that. Councillor Benton.
Yeah, just quickly, Lawrence and Lisa, also with regard to the city's capital request, if we could, have just a short description of exactly what that looks like. Perhaps the committee would, or the council would like to endorse that as well. Thank you.
Good point. Thanks, Councillor. We will do that for sure. Any other questions on the city's agenda as it relates to the legislature? If not, we will then move forward to go with the county agenda, Julie, or any other commissioners.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'll take that one. So we have a couple, and of course, one pretty much goes without saying. So we will be supporting any legislation that the city introduces via capital or any language, any changes. And so we will have that on our priorities for sure. And then we've got a couple, so we have some nonprofits that have come to the county for assistance having to do with homelessness, let's see, or providing adequate like food and shelter and things like that. So we are on board with these various nonprofits for those things. And then we've got a couple that I'm looking at. So we've got one that says, create more services and secure housing options for transition age youth. So there's a need for appropriate funding to develop resources for, as you guys know, for housing. For our youth ages 16 to 24 years old who are aging out of the state. So there's always that issue with that. So we, of course, are working with CYFD on that. And then also supporting legislation that provides housing, training, and employment opportunities for incarcerated individuals being released into the community so we can prepare them to, live in our society and contribute and be helpful and hopeful as well. So we've got those things that are going on and are always open to working with UNM, our partners at UNM, UNMH, or the city or the state on anything. So that's pretty much where we're at.
Thank you, Commissioner Piscotti or Commissioner O'Malley. Would you like to add any other comments? Okay.
Good job, Julie. Thank you.
Julie, I might make a comment about, I don't know if I heard you correctly, but when do they transition out of the state sort of care is it age 18?
Some as young as 16. So
Wow.
you'd be surprised some, but a lot of times CYFD has been really great, but I know that sometimes, there's just certain things they can and can't do, but we're focusing on ages 16 to 24.
Yeah, I was just wondering if maybe from a policy standpoint, just food for thought, right now you're able to keep your children on your health insurance till the age 26 or, when they complete, I'm wondering if we couldn't get on the same page. I mean, this is all about health and especially for young people. It would certainly, I think, would help our friends at the university with a lot of the young people that are, that could use some support, while they're going to school, et cetera. So might be something to think about expanding that age limitation, if you will, a little lot more. But anyway, Quinn wanted to weigh in on something. Quinn.
I really appreciate hearing that the county is putting in resources for young people that are in the transition age. I would say also, if it is possible, to include not just those that are systems involved, so not just those that are aging out of foster care or juvenile justice, but to think of those that are not in a system that still need the same level of support. That could go a long way, because there are quite a bit of resources for aging out of foster care youth, and to think of the ones that still slip through the cracks would be a definite help to our community. I just wanted to throw that in there. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Quinn. And I'd like to work with you a little bit more on that. So maybe the city and the county can do something jointly. There's always, as they say, there's always strength in numbers. So I'd love to work with you. Sounds good. Love your ideas. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner O'Malley?
Yeah, Lawrence, not too long ago, I got a call from our friend, Margaret Aragon de Chavez, or I think it's just maybe Marcin Chavez, maybe, I'm not sure. Anyway, she is the director. I think she's not exactly sure what her title is, to be honest with you, but she's working with this group of folks, this population of young people who are aging out of foster care. And they have federal vouchers. They were looking for safe housing. They were looking for apartments, small apartments where they could, in areas that were, well, as she considered safe areas. And she had reached out to us to see if that was possible to identify. So they have the money for the vouchers themselves, but they don't have the capital dollars, I guess, to look at renovating an apartment or renovating a place like that. So just to put that out there, that's a real need. And as you know, of course, it's not, that's one of our goals too, is to look at properties to renovate for permanently affordable housing. So there could be a fit there. But that's something that is clearly very important.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. That's good points there. Any other thoughts on the county's agenda? Anybody else want to add any other thoughts to that? All right, then let's go to the university to see if the university has any issues that they might be pursuing in the legislature, and how we might be able to help. So President Stokes or Dr. Z, any thoughts?
Thank you. When I saw this on the agenda, I wasn't quite sure where the conversation would take us. So, I think, what I'll need to do and want to do is to go through what we've identified as our legislative priorities and see what there is particularly relevant for what we're trying to achieve here in the city and county. So if I could bring that back to the next meeting, Barbara Dameron is our government relations person, and I really would hope to connect her with what we are, what the city and the county is actually doing, because I'm sure that there are ways in which we can collaborate. There's no doubt in my mind that UNM will be supportive of these efforts. We're very much behind them. I also feel like that buried within a number of things that we are pursuing are going to be some things that might be relevant, and I don't want to lose out on an opportunity to really collaborate more effectively if there's some way that that works for us. Doug Z, do you have anything you would want to add to that?
No, I think that's a good summary, and Dr. Dameron is really a terrific leader in this space for us, and so also for me being new in the club, but we do have a number of issues, and I think it'll be great to bring this back to the next meeting.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you very much, President Stokes and Dr. Z. We'll look forward to hearing from you all and see what we can do to help as we move forward. The next item on our agenda is just to get an update on the coordinated community-wide framework that we put together. This, as you'll recall, was something we had on our agenda several months ago, and we put out a survey so that we could get some feedback from the community on the framework. And I believe in this particular one, I think it's going to be Quinn that will give us an update on the survey, and Carol, you can chime in. So I'll turn it over to you all.
Hello, everyone. Thanks. I hope you're all having a good morning. So David, I was wondering if you would be able to share the survey results on your screen so I could just do a little talking around some of the points.
Yep, just 1 second. Let me get that up here.
Great. Thank you so much. So I can just give you a brief overview that this survey was put out to basically get feedback around the direction of each committee. So with gateway facilities, services, coordinated street outreach, youth housing and affordable housing, the respondents were prompted to ask a question or to answer a question on whether or not they agreed with the direction. The age breakdown of this survey is I would say 56% of respondents were 55 and older, following 36% being 35 to 55 years old. And I will add that we had a total respondent rate of 458 individuals. The zip code breakdown of the survey, you can go to the third page, David. The zip code breakdown is really interesting and actually lines up with what you'd expect. So the majority of respondents indicated that they lived in 87102 with 15% and 87108 with 15%. Following in third highest at 8% with 87106. And we've highlighted this map. It's a little small on your screen, so I can walk you through this. That 87102 and 87108 and 87106 are exactly in the areas of town that we would expect most respondents to come from, because these are where there are high levels of concentrated homelessness, unfortunately. So thank you for zooming in on that, David. So you can see 87106 is the downtown-ish, but also not, yeah, downtown-ish. And then, I'm sorry, these are, the words I'm using are not that descriptive, but I'm sure you all understand what I mean when I say downtownish. So thank you for your patience. And 87108 to the east is also, that's going to be close to where Gibson Medical Center is. So that's right on trend with what with the direction that the city is going. And then 87102 is downtownish. That's the real downtown. So thank you. So that's the zip code breakup. I found that to be most interesting in the survey. For the rest of the questions, I will say that the majority of respondents agreed or strongly agreed with the direction of each committee. So we see that as a trend throughout with the services committee, facilities, outreach, affordable housing, and youth housing, that the majority of folks did agree with the direction it was going. We did have a written comment section within the survey that allowed folks to sort of write some written comments or highlight things that were not part of the survey to begin with. So there were emergent themes, and that's on the last page, David, if you want to skip down to that. I'm going a little fast, so if there are questions at the end, please ask. So the themes that emerged, I do want to just read through these. So out of those 458 folks that did respond, 287 of those wished to write a written comment. And there were themes, and the themes that arose were that the management of the needs of the neighborhoods should be in better balance with the needs of individuals experiencing homelessness. So I did read that, a lot of community members did feel as though there is a large focus on folks experiencing homelessness and not enough protections around their neighborhoods to mitigate impact. Also, we are looking to, there are people that would like the increased allocation of funding for permanent housing, including explicit housing first models and alternative housing options such as group homes for individuals who need continued support and struggle to live alone safely. This is a fantastic thing to pull out, because as someone had mentioned on our public viewing side, and also Commissioner Debbie O'Malley mentioned that we do need to have different housing models for different types of people with different types of needs. As many of you know, I think it was in 2013 that our behavioral health system was gutted, and we lost a lot of these middle step housing possibilities. So the fact that this is showing up on our survey is no surprise, because it is a need in our community. Also, we do need to call out specific services and places to stay for individuals leaving incarceration, and also for families with children. And this is inclusion of different family structures, since many of the services and facilities we have at this time privilege single mothers with their children. Also, there are concerns around having the Gateway Center within central Albuquerque, given that the majority of respondents to the survey live in zip codes within the central Albuquerque area, but this response came as no surprise. More updates for people who don't participate in these committees as recommended. So folks do want, the government entities to communicate more clearly as updates arise, and not just within these formal bodies. Also, a number of respondents commented on the visual that homelessness appears to be getting worse. We don't have the data for that yet. The point in time count is happening next week. So hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to know for sure if those numbers are aligning with what we are seeing. Also, there are concerns regarding the work of the committees and the follow through into action. So I do want to highlight that people do want us to continue the work and not just meet about it. Respondents had many questions about funding, like what are the funding streams? Why aren't we simply funding existing agencies and providing more funding for permanent housing? Gateways need to have services for individuals to enter the workforce so that we can help folks get on their path. And also, several respondents did mention a safe injection site, or another name for that would be a safe consumption site should be considered. So those are the running themes that came through of our survey. I know that was a quick and fast summary, but if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them to the best of my ability. Councilor Benton?
Yeah, Quinn, with regard to, maybe this is for everyone, not just for Quinn, but with regard to how at the gateway, at a gateway, I should say, the idea that we should have services to get people into the workforce. I mean, do we have a sense of what percentage of the individuals that we hope to serve at the gateways are in a position to get into the workforce or to apply for work? I mean, I know that many of the individuals that we're probably targeting here are, you know, need help before they you know, are in a position to do that, various sorts of help. But I know that's probably maybe too broad of a question, but when I see that, you know, they go, well, we're trying to help them get work. What percentage would we say of the folks really are need other help before they can do that?
Councilor Benton, I think that is a really fantastic question and point. I don't have the data for that number. However, I do think that your instincts are correct with the assumption that many of those who we are targeting to help will need to stabilize first before they could enter the workforce. Or also, you know, for the folks that qualify for a permanent supportive housing voucher, basically they qualify for that voucher because there is something saying like you need more help, probably working a full-time job is not in your future, but this will help you sustain. So I would be curious about that too. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have any data on that number, but I think your hunch is correct, Councilor Benton.
Yeah. Hey, David, can we go back to the off the shared page, please? So we can see, thank you so much. Okay, any other questions? Councilor Benton, I think your question, obviously, as Quinn said, is a good one. Let us do some research and see what we can come up with as it relates to what we're seeing at the West Side in terms of just folks that might be in a position to actually get employment of some level of some sort. As you know, thanks to your efforts and some of the work that we've done at the city before we had some programs where we had some of the homeless folks participating in some of the cleanup programs the city has, just as a way to get them an opportunity to get back on their feet. And I know we're going to continue to move in that direction, but certainly connecting ourselves in our programs to maybe the Workforce Solutions Department and other federal programs that might be available to help train some of these folks might also be a good opportunity to further help these folks get back on their feet. So let us look at that, and we'll get back with the committee and give you a report when we get that information.
Lawrence, can I add
Sure,
something just very quickly? I just want to say we do have information within our homeless management information system, or HMIS, of how many folks who are in our shelter system right now are currently working, have some kind of employment income. So I think that would give us at least a rough sense of how many, you know, just need help obtaining a better paying job or more hours or whatever they need to access permanent housing. So we can look into that.
Okay, great. I know that we're getting close to the hour, so I want to make sure I'm respectful of folks' time. We've got a couple of other quick issues. I know that we wanted to have a quick conversation about people with the lived experience input. I don't know if that was Quinn or Carol. Go ahead, Quinn.
Hi there again. So I am putting together a survey that will target the folks with lived experience to help us kind of understand what we should do next with the gateways. So what I mean in specific is there were focus groups that did target people with lived experience that happened prior to my time at the city. So I apologize for not knowing exactly when that was. However, at that time, those questions were largely focused around what do we want and where should it be? The next questions will be more around how and why. And so I'm looking at asking some of the nitty gritty details of questions, like for safe storage of belongings, does it matter to you to have a locker upon intake or one by your bed? Or in the first 24 hours at a shelter, what is most meaningful to you? And I have a list of different types of things. So last week I did speak with a member of the Friends Meeting House, and I think they will be helping me to get some folks to answer it. We also have all of our folks at the WEC and our wellness hotels that we can work with. And if anybody else would like to participate in this effort, it should all be on SurveyMonkey, so it would be easy to just ask the questions and input the answers. And once that's completed, I can let everyone know when that's done.
Okay, great. David, can you go back? There were a couple of questions that came up on the chat real quick so that we can just at least address some of them.
Yes, real quick. I know there was one, I think maybe we may have missed earlier from Bill Hoffman, but asking about when the HCC Facilities Committee would have a joint meeting this month with Services Committee to discuss sanctioned encampments. And then does the HCC have standards for this? And then I think there was a couple more comments after that.
Okay. All right. Yes, we will look at a joint committee meeting with the services folks. We're planning on hopefully doing that sometime in February, and we'll keep folks posted as we find a date for that meeting to occur. So just as an FYI. Anyway, let's move on. Then we have our next item on our agenda, if you will, is the research and assessment opportunities. And Carol, I think you and the university, I think we're working on this. So I don't know if it's President Stokes, if you'll want to take the lead on that, and then we'll go from there.
Happy to. I wanted to be able to let you know that, I mean, these are some important questions that have been raised, and I think they're here on the agenda. Of course, the youth housing assessment, we're addressing that with an outside consultant, but certainly on the first two issues, the review of existing data, the impact and benefits, we've identified some people from UNM that will be involved with our partners in the city and the county. The first individual is from the Bureau of Business and Economic Research. It's Susan Reagan. She's a senior program manager. She's a labor economist with 20 years of experience in analyzing industry and occupation statistics, and has worked with the New Mexico Department of Workforce Solutions, Economic Research and Analysis, is the coordinator of New Mexico State, the data center program for the U.S. Census Bureau. So she's got a lot of knowledge about data. And another lead for us will be Rania Ehrenfloyd. She is a professor and chair of the Community and Regional Planning Department at UNM's Architecture and Planning. She also serves as a central regional representative of the Association of Collegiate Schools of Planning, lots of books and journal articles, but what she focuses on in her expertise is how ordinary spaces and local institutions influence people's opportunities in diverse environments. She also serves on the executive committee of the Albuquerque Affordable Housing. She's familiar with the work of this council. Now, Mark Childs is going to stay involved as much as possible. But I want to thank him for his work. He's really appreciated his leadership from UNM related to our issues here in Albuquerque. He is in the midst of moving to Seattle, so we're going to keep him attached. But and of course, our Health Sciences Center is heavily involved in this as well. And I know Dr. Z, I know he's in a car headed to the pit, and he's pulled together a group that's sifting through these questions as well. So we will, so rather than, I know that he's working with Nina Wallerstein and Mauricio Toan, Richard Larson to figure out the point persons, and then we will, Carol, follow up, and we will pull together these meetings with our city and county partners and push this this research agenda forward.
And hi, this is Doug in the car, driving to the pit, getting the vaccination stuff going. But I just want to echo what President Stokes has said. And so our group is starting to meet, and we're excited about it. My own program of research has included homelessness, so I'm really excited about this collaboration. So I'll keep it brief for today, but I think at our next meeting we'll have a lot more detail.
Mhm. Thank you, Dr. Z, and thank you, President Stokes. We look forward to continue to work with you all and get the benefit of your folks' expertise to help us resolve some of these. So good stuff. Carol, anything else you want to add to this?
No, just really excited to join city, and I'm sure the county as well, to just have a good research lens on this with UNM leadership. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Okay, so that's concludes at least our agenda as it relates to some of the items that we had to report on. As you'll notice in the agenda, we propose the 2021 meeting dates. We don't need to take formal action on this. I think it was just a way so that everyone can get some of these dates on your calendars as you plan for this coming year. And of course, barring any unforeseen situations, 2020 was certainly had its share of challenges for us on dates and times, et cetera. And hopefully we don't have the same. Hopefully we'll get past our current situation and have a more, shall we say, a more predictable future. But nonetheless, wanted just to put those on your agenda so that you could look at them as you're planning your schedules going forward.
And Lawrence,
Go ahead,
if I may, if those are acceptable for everybody, then our Deb will send those out in a calendar invite. So everybody's got those on their calendars. Just wanted to show that we had avoided February 16th and those March dates and June dates when it fell by a holiday or something. So if these are acceptable, we'll go ahead and send out those calendar invites.
Yep, and of course, you all are very, very busy, all you elected officials and council and President Stokes, Dr. Z, so that we, obviously, your alternates are always welcome to take your place whenever we have these meetings if you can't make it. So we appreciate everyone's work up to this point. The session is going to be an interesting one, given the current pandemic, if you will, orders of how we do business. So we might be doing a lot of Zoom calls with our legislators moving forward. Anyway, with that, let me open it up for the group. Anyone have any comments or any thoughts here as we close our meeting for this week? Okie dokie. Well then,
And Lawrence,
just as
looks like
Dave.
Councilor Benton has his hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilor Benton. I apologize. I didn't see the little hand there.
Yeah. Thank you, Lawrence. This question is a question, not a comment, really, and it's related to questions that I'm getting from my constituents. I think the efforts of this council has really raised the awareness of our citizens and residents of Albuquerque about these issues, and that raises questions that I'm being asked that I don't have the answers for, as you can imagine. But one of the big ones is who to call.
Mm-hmm.
who can I call other than the police to respond to multiple questions, encampments, a down and out person, a behavioral health crisis. And you know, it's usually prefaced by, we don't want to call 242 cops and we don't want to call 911 unless there's an emergency in progress, clearly, you know, whether that's a health emergency or a public safety emergency. And, you know, I know we used to have a card, you know, like a little card that had some helplines. I know since that card was printed, I haven't seen it lately. Helplines have been added. For instance, the Agora helpline at UNM, which is a great thing, but again, it's kind of an 8 to 5 service. And what do you do when there's something going on in the middle of the night? And I have a very difficult time answering these questions. So I wonder if we could put that on I'm not asking for the answer today, but I wonder if we could put that on our agenda for the next meeting to try to see what we can do to summarize that and to help people who really do want to help the population of persons experiencing homelessness without necessarily having the police involved. And we know that in some cases, the outreach teams do have phone calls with police. If something goes off the rails, then you know, they're able to contact officers. I know that's the case with the downtown public safety unit specifically. They have real good communications with Albuquerque Street Connect. But you know, this is so far-ranging, you know, and the circumstances are so different. There was even, you know, there have even been questions, what about the new department that the city is proposing? You know, who can I talk to about that and give my opinions about that and what it should be and what it should look like? So that's a pretty wide-ranging question for everybody, but I do think it's an urgent one because citizens want to help. They want to be helpful. They don't want to call a police response on every person that they see, you know, on their block that's seemingly in need. So, thanks.
No, thanks, Councilor. No, that's you're right. Carol, let me ask you: do we have something in place that at least gets to some of the questions that the councilor asked? Let me preface before you talk by saying, Councilor, on the last item, which is the new city department, I will get back with you and get you some specific who to call on that. We're still working through that, as you know, with some of the council staff and some of our folks. But that one to me is one that we have a little bit more information on. But Carol, if you could just talk about the first part of the councilor's question, that would be great.
Thank you, Lawrence and Councilor Benton. Well, it's really, as you said, we do have a variety of outreach teams that are positioned to help. You know, our 272 help, I've got the number right, that contract with Agora actually ends the end of this month and didn't fully end up with the kind of calls and support that were needed. So we're trying to revamp that as an option, but those calls will be currently answered by 311. It will be forwarded. And then the navigators, we've got some navigators that are in place to help people connect to immediate needs on housing and other resources. And we think that will answer those calls that do come in through 272 help. So that's what I would say, but I do agree it would be, I can put that on the agenda and I think we can have a more comprehensive answer because there are the crisis teams, but then that does involve APD or county sheriff. And those are effective mechanisms, but that does involve law enforcement as well.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not saying, you know, this is the kind of the way it's put to me. I know that we have a lot of really good officers who are CIT trained. We have specific CIT teams that are in law enforcement, but But yeah, it's a big question, you know, and
Sure, sure.
and it's probably a moving target as we develop more services and when we develop some of the work that we're doing right now. But when someone sees for instance, an encampment in their neighborhood, or even just the evidence of encampments where there's trash and things like that, I mean, that's a pretty basic issue of neighborhood concerns. All of these, you know, are the sorts of things that have been raised.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, Councilor. You know, if I think about it as you're talking and thinking about all the city departments that are involved, as you said, you know, typically our encampments, you know, are done by, you know, solid waste and a couple of other departments that help go out there and we have the outreach teams, as Carol described, and then you have APD, you have fire, you have so it might be helpful, Carol, for us to sit back internally, organizationally, and see if there is something that might be a little bit more. I think what the councilor, and if I'm reading between the lines here, Councilor Benton, correct me if I'm wrong, probably is that, look, if I'm having to deal with an issue with homelessness, can I have a centralized, you know, if you will, clearinghouse where I can call and say, look, here are the issues, without me having to be, as a citizen, having to go through APD, Family and Community Services, solid waste, or zoning, or whomever. So let us take a look at that. We've had those before. We've tried to sort of put everything under 311 because that's where people find that it's easy to get information, but it may be that in this particular area, we need to do something a little different. Commissioner Piscotti, you have your hands up, Commissioner.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I just wanted to mention that New Mexico Crisis and Access Line, NMCAL, that's a 24-hour line that's staffed by licensed professionals. But I know that Margarita from Behavioral Health from the county would like to address your question, Councilor Benson.
Yeah, go ahead, Margarita. I was going to call on you, but I wanted to finish this. Are you on, Dave? Can we get her on the line?
Yes, I believe. Okay, I found her. She's an attendee, and I will allow her in. She should be in. There we go.
Good morning. Can you all hear me?
We can. Good morning.
Great. Thank you so much. I was going to mention, as the commissioner stated, the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line, we're really working to promote that line. Councilor Benton, if folks are asking for behavioral health needs, it is nice that that line can refer to 911 if the provider identifies that it does require a higher acuity of care. Now, the other piece that's really exciting is that we are currently in preliminary discussions with providers about launching our community engagement teams. So the community engagement teams that will hopefully launch in the next few months will be able to be a phone number that folks can call 24/7 and have a response within 24 hours to address clients in the community who are needing non-emergent response. It'll be driven by peers primarily, but it'll be a collaborative team with providers, prescribing providers, social workers, and other professionals who can support these clients and connect them to long-term sustainable services. So this is part of that larger continuum that we're working to build out. As you know, our mobile crisis teams, those are for crisis and high acuity, but there's been a little bit of a gap, right, for folks that don't necessarily need that quote unquote 911 response. So our community engagement teams, I think, will really help focus on clients who are needing that behavioral health support. Above and beyond that, there's probably continued conversations about, I see an encampment in my neighborhood, how do I address that, right? Because that maybe is not as appropriate for these community engagement teams, but the community engagement teams are a component to respond to clients in their homes, in the field, to be able to address their needs and plug them into long-term sustainable services, as opposed to tapping into our higher acuity mobile crisis teams. So just be on the lookout. That is coming soon, and there will be a dedicated number that folks can call 24/7 and receive a 24-hour response. In my mind, the long-term vision is that this is part of a system, right? So if 311 is the right number to call for a cleanup for an encampment, then if a community engagement team gets a call for that, they can connect to the right person within the city, and vice versa. If 311 gets a call and it's more of a CET type call, they can refer that that to CET, and we ensure that we are working collaboratively and building out the systems to meet the larger needs in the community.
Thank you, Margarita. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Margarita. That's actually very good. Let me just maybe to my friends at the county, it might be worthwhile at some point, because behavioral health is such a big piece of this homeless population's conversations. Maybe having Margarita make a presentation about the county's work on BHI issues would be really super important, so that we can make sure that we're not trying to reinvent the wheel on our end. Ironically, you know, as Margarita was talking, you know, we had the outreach committee meeting or group that's been doing a lot of outreach work. So, you know, it's just interesting to me. The city has outreach groups. The county is going to have engagement teams. We just got to make sure we're all that we're all sort of in sync with each other. I think the engagement teams are a great idea, Margarita. So I applaud that effort for sure. I just want to make sure that that we coordinate, because it goes back to the counselor's point. We got so many folks out there delivering services. Sometimes we got to make sure the left hand knows what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. So, but all good conversation. Thank you very much, Margarita. And
absolutely, and happy to do a presentation anytime you like.
Yeah.
Charlie Verplu, our assistant director, does also sit on that outreach committee. So
Okay.
hopefully that'll help us make sure that everything is collaborative, and at times Carol and I may be attached at the hip in a number of ways to make sure that we're working collaboratively.
Awesome, terrific. Okay, do we have any other chat questions before we sign off here?
I do not see any, sir.
Okay, good. Anyway, any other thoughts before we end our morning meeting today from anyone? Well, again, Happy New Year to all of you that have not seen. President Stokes, thank you very much for your time and for all the work the university is doing. Commissioner Piscotti and Commissioner O'Malley for your help, and Councilor Benton. And thank you very much. And of course, to all the staff, great work. And we'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Have a good day.